She looks like a stray dog up there." Those words were whispered right next to me, so casual, so cruel. But what shattered me even more was my husband's response. He laughed, not nervously, not out of confusion, but the kind of laugh people make when they're proud of their punchline. Then he added, just loud enough for the others around us to hear, "She's just like her mother, useless." And right then, I realized I was surrounded by people who didn't just tolerate cruelty. They enjoyed it. Let me rewind a few minutes. My name's Ava. I'm 33, a stay-at-home mom, and that little girl up there on stage, that's Lily, my daughter. She's 8, shy, thoughtful, with the kind of heart that cries over crumpled flowers and rescues bugs from sidewalks. This school talent show was her idea, something she'd begged to do for months. She wanted to sing, alone, on a stage, in front of strangers. I didn't think she'd go through with it, honestly. Lily's always been nervous in crowds, and lately she's been extra quiet at home. But she practiced for weeks in her room, holding a hairbrush like a mic, whisper singing into it like the words were secrets. Now here we were, her standing under bright stage lights in her pink sweater and sparkly jeans, and me in the second row, heart pounding out of my chest. To my left was my husband, Brad. We've been married for almost 10 years. Once upon a time, he was charming, warm even. But over the years, that warmth froze over into something sharp and cold. And to my right, his mother, Carol, sat with that usual stiff posture and permanent look of disapproval she wears like perfume. "She looks like a stray dog up there." Carol's lips barely moved, but her words sliced straight through me. My breath caught in my throat. Then Brad laughed, a short, snide chuckle. "She's just like her mother, useless." I froze, my hands resting in my lap curled into fists without me even realizing. The glossy paper of the event program crinkled under my grip. My cheeks burned, my ears rang. It wasn't just what they said, it was where they said it, right here, surrounded by other parents, teachers, children, and some of those parents, they laughed too, a few quietly, others with that awkward smirk people get when they want to belong, even if it means laughing at a child. I could feel the weight of it, the humiliation, the betrayal. I didn't know whether to stand up, scream, or shrink into my seat. Why did his words hit me so hard? Why now? Maybe because deep down I've spent years wondering if I am useless. I gave up my writing dreams. I let Brad manage the bills, the choices, the conversations. I told myself it was love. But now, I looked up at Lily. She hadn't started singing yet. She just stood there clutching the mic, her small shoulders trembling. Her eyes scanned the audience, searching. I wondered if she'd heard. God, I hoped not. Then, in one breathless moment, she stepped closer to the mic. Her voice rang out, not in song, but in something much braver. "I want to thank the person who saved me." The room stilled. I stopped breathing. And then, she lifted her arm and pointed, directly at me. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted salt. Lily's little finger was still pointing at me from the stage. Her eyes locked with mine, steady, unwavering, and so full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Courage. For a second, I couldn't move. It felt like the air had thickened around me. Everyone in that auditorium had gone silent, like they were waiting for a punchline that never came. Brad shifted in his seat beside me, suddenly uncomfortable, and Carol crossed her arms, exhaling sharply like she smelled something unpleasant. But me? I just sat there, stunned, the weight of that moment pressing down on every inch of my chest. How did we get here? A week ago, Lily had come to me while I was folding laundry on the couch. She had that anxious look she always gets before asking something big, tugging at the hem of her shirt, eyes flicking from the floor to my face. "Mom? If I try out for the talent show, would you come?" My heart broke a little at how gently she asked, as if there was any version of the universe where I wouldn't be front row. "Of course I'll come," I said, kneeling down to her level. "You could be juggling oranges or reciting the alphabet and I'd still be your biggest fan." She smiled then. Not wide, but the kind where one side of her lip curls up, like she's trying to hide how happy she is. That's Lily. Quiet, soft, always afraid of taking up too much space. I know where she gets it, For the past 8 years, it's just been the two of us in this strange bubble of love and survival. Brad's there, technically, but emotionally, he left years ago. Somewhere between promotion after promotion, he stopped seeing me as a person and more like background noise. And Carol, well, she's only ever seen me as an inconvenience. She was never supposed to come to the talent show. I hadn't invited her, but Brad insisted, said it was family stuff. Translation, let's parade the kid for approval. I should have said no. The morning of the performance, Lily was too nervous to eat breakfast. I tried making her favorite, banana pancakes with chocolate chips, the way she likes them slightly burnt, but she just picked at them. "I'm scared, Mom," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the clink of her fork against the plate. I sat beside her, rubbing circles into her back. "Being scared just means you care. That's not a bad thing." She looked up at me then. "What if I mess up?" "You won't," I said, trying to sound sure. "But even if you do, I'll still be clapping louder than anyone else." And I meant it. The whole ride to the school, Carol complained from the passenger seat about how slow traffic was and how Lily's outfit looked more thrift store than talent show. Brad just nodded, occasionally throwing in a sigh. I kept my eyes on the road. I'd learned long ago that arguing with Carol was like trying to teach a brick wall empathy. But Lily? She sat in the back seat holding her little lyric sheet, humming to herself in between deep, shaky breaths. And now, here we were. That same shy, nervous little girl had just stood on stage and told a room full of people, including the ones who belittled her, that I was the person who saved her. I should have felt proud, triumphant. Instead, I felt something much deeper. Seen. Even after Lily pointed at me and called me the person who saved her, I could still feel Brad's eyes on me. Not soft or proud, just irritated, like I'd stolen a moment that didn't belong to me. He leaned slightly in my direction and muttered through a stiff jaw, "You're making this about you." I blinked at him. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes wet. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. Making it about me? My daughter just stood up for herself and me, and somehow Brad still found a way to twist it into something selfish. I turned away from him. Lily had started singing now. Her voice was light, a little shaky, but sweet. So sweet. The kind of voice that made you lean in, not because it was loud, but because it was fragile and brave, like watching a flower bloom through concrete. I wanted to get lost in her voice, but I couldn't. Not with Carol shifting next to me every few seconds, sighing dramatically and checking the time on her gold bracelet watch. "She's pitchy," she whispered, not even trying to be subtle this time. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak. My jaw was clenched so tight I could feel it in my ears. But the worst part? The parents sitting behind us, the same ones who chuckled earlier at Brad's awful comment, were now whispering too. I caught pieces of it. Words like awkward and off-key floated through the air like little needles. And suddenly, I wasn't sitting in a school auditorium anymore. I was back in our kitchen 4 years ago, reading a short story I'd written aloud to Brad. It had taken me weeks to finish, and I'd been so excited. My voice trembled, my hands were cold, but I poured my heart into every word. When I finished, he sipped his beer and said, "It's fine, but who would actually read this stuff?" That same chill spread through me now. They weren't just criticizing Lily's voice. They were mocking her vulnerability, her courage, her effort, just like they always had with me. And I sat there silent. I hated myself for that. Why was I still shrinking in the presence of people who never once clapped for me? Why was I letting their opinions cut deeper than the truth I already knew? That Lily was brave and kind and talented in ways that didn't need their approval. My fingers were digging into the seat cushion now, gripping it like it could anchor me to something steady. My heart ached for Lily. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve them. And yet, she kept singing. Verse by verse, she grew stronger. Her voice steadied. She looked out at the audience, and I could see it. The moment something shifted inside her. Her back straightened. Her hands relaxed at her sides. She wasn't performing anymore. She was claiming her space. I glanced around. Some people were still whispering, but others? They were listening, really listening. A few even started to smile. But I couldn't ignore the quiet war happening just inches from me. Brad sat stiff as a board, his jaw tight, refusing to clap. Carol stared at her phone now, probably texting her sister something awful. And me? I sat there, feeling a fire build in my chest. Fire that had been smoldering for years, waiting for the right spark. This was it. This was the moment I realized I couldn't let them do to Lily what they had done to me, and I wouldn't. I don't know what came over me, but something inside me cracked open. Like a dam that had been holding back years of silent tears and swallowed words. I looked at Lily on that stage, standing alone, in front of an entire room that had just heard her claim me as the person who saved her. And I knew. I couldn't stay silent anymore. When she finished her final note, the applause started slowly, a few claps here and there. Then it grew. Parents who hadn't even looked at her before were standing up. I saw one dad nodding to his son like, "See? That's what bravery looks like." I felt a warm tear slide down my cheek, but this time, it wasn't from pain. It was pride. Not the performative kind Brad shows off at dinner parties, but real pride. The kind that rises up from your chest and makes your hands tremble because you love someone so deeply it physically hurts. Beside me, Brad gave one of those fake, two-clap efforts, the bare minimum. Carol didn't clap at all. She was still scrolling through her phone. Her lips pursed like she'd just tasted something sour. That fire I'd felt earlier? Now it was roaring. I leaned in toward Brad. My voice was low, steady. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. She heard you, you and your mother. She may not understand every word, but she felt it. He didn't look at me, just muttered, "Don't start." "No," I said louder now. "You started. Years ago. Every time you told her she was too sensitive. Every time you told me I was too soft. People around us were watching. I didn't care. Let them hear. Let them see what quiet endurance looks like when it finally snaps." Lily had stepped off the stage by now and was walking back toward her class, but she turned around once, just for a moment, and our eyes met again. There was something in her expression I hadn't seen in a long time. Relief. Like she knew I wasn't just proud of her, I was fighting for her now. That's when I stood up. I didn't even think. I walked right past Brad and Carol, past the other parents still whispering, and straight down the aisle toward the backstage door. The school volunteer tried to stop me. "Ma'am, parents aren't allowed back here right now," she said gently. I just looked her in the eyes and said, "I need to tell my daughter something." She stepped aside. I found Lily sitting cross-legged on the floor, holding a water bottle, cheeks still pink from performing. She looked up at me. Was I okay? I knelt beside her and took her face in my hands. "You were more than okay," I whispered. "You were brave, and you were honest, and I want you to know." I heard every word. She smiled, this big toothy grin that nearly split her face. The kind of smile kids get when they know they've made you proud. I pulled her into a hug and whispered, "I've been quiet for too long, but not anymore. I promise you, I won't let anyone make you feel small again, especially not in your own family." Her arms tightened around my neck. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was deciding. After I hugged Lily backstage, I didn't go back to my seat. I couldn't. I stood by the side wall of the auditorium, tucked behind a row of folding chairs just out of view. But from where I stood, I could still see Brad and Carol. They hadn't moved. Brad was checking his watch. Carol was filing her nails. Actually filing her nails. Like nothing had happened. Like their granddaughter hadn't just stood on stage and poured her heart out. And it hit me like a freight train. They weren't just dismissive. They were deliberately blind. They chose to look away from beauty if it didn't fit their mold of perfection. And for years, I'd been shrinking myself to fit into their box. I'd let myself be softened, silenced, reshaped, not out of love, but out of survival. Not anymore. I walked back into the seating area just as the school principal took the stage to thank all the kids. I stayed standing. My eyes never left Brad and Carol. I didn't even blink when Brad turned and gave me a "where have you been" glance. I just stood there, waiting. When the assembly ended, the crowd erupted into conversation and shuffling feet. I could hear parents congratulating their kids, backpacks zipping up, teachers calling out names. But I moved with purpose, like I was walking through water and nothing could knock me off course. I met Lily outside her classroom, where the kids were being released to their parents. She ran up to me and slipped her small hand into mine. It was warm and slightly sweaty from nerves, but she held tight, and I held tighter. Then I saw Brad approaching, Carol trailing behind like a queen who hated being near peasants. Brad looked at me like I was a loose thread he didn't know how to snip. "We should head out," he said flatly. "Traffic's gonna be hell." I looked down at Lily, then back at him. "No," I said. "You two can go. Lily and I are staying." Carol scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Ava." I turned to her, and for once I wasn't afraid to meet her gaze. "You called my daughter a stray dog. You mocked her. In front of strangers. In front of me. You don't get to tell me what's dramatic anymore." Brad's face hardened. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a boundary," I replied, my voice level, clear. "You crossed a line today, both of you, and I let you, for far too long, but it ends now." Lily looked up at me, wide-eyed. "Are we okay, Mom?" I knelt beside her. "We're better than okay. You showed me what courage looks like, and now it's my turn." I stood back up and looked Brad dead in the eyes. If protecting my daughter makes me dramatic, so be it. I'd rather be dramatic than disappear. He didn't say a word. His lips parted, but no sound came out. For once, he had nothing clever to say. Good. Without another word, I turned and walked away, Lily's hand in mine. We walked to a nearby park instead of getting in the car. We sat on a bench under the shade of a tree, sharing a melting ice cream cone from a vendor cart. She giggled when it dripped on her shirt. I didn't even care. That day didn't end with applause or trophies, but it ended with truth. And sometimes that's even more powerful. It's been 4 months since that night. 4 months since Lily pointed to me and called me her savior, and I finally believed I could be. A lot has changed since then. Not in some flashy Hollywood kind of way, but in those quiet, meaningful ways you don't always see at first. I started journaling again. Nothing fancy, just spiral notebooks and cheap pens. But every night, after Lily goes to bed, I sit down at the kitchen table and let the words come. Some nights, it's messy. Some nights, I write a single paragraph. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm hearing my own voice again. I also started therapy. Just me, alone, once a week. At first, I was embarrassed to admit it, even to myself. But now, it's my one sacred hour where I'm allowed to feel without filtering, where I can finally name the things I've been carrying. Guilt, resentment, fear, and in love. So much love. Lily's been different too, in the most incredible ways. That moment on stage lit something inside her. She sings louder now, laughs easier. The other day, she asked me if we could make music together. And for the first time, I dusted off my old keyboard from college. We played for an hour. It was clumsy and out of tune, but we were alive. Brad? We're still living in the same house. For now. But I've drawn lines that were never there before. I stopped apologizing for speaking. I started making decisions. Real ones. I opened a savings account in my name. I looked into part-time work at a local bookstore. I even emailed an old friend from a writing workshop I used to attend. She replied in 5 minutes. "Where have you been?" "Let's catch up." And Carol? I haven't seen her since the talent show. She tried calling once, left a voicemail pretending nothing had happened. I didn't call her back. I don't think I will. Sometimes silence is the boundary, and honestly, feels peaceful. For the first time in years, I'm not waiting for the next blow to fall. I'm not twisting myself into someone smaller just to keep the peace. I'm not trying to prove my worth to people committed to misunderstanding me. Instead, I'm building something else. For Lily and for me. We have this new ritual now. Every Friday night, we get in our pajamas, make hot chocolate, and curl up on the couch with a blanket that's way too big for the two of us. And before the movie starts, I always ask her one question. "What's something brave you did this week?" Last week, she said, "I told a boy at school to stop making fun of my glasses." I smiled and said, "That's my girl." She looked at me and whispered, "You helped me learn how." And that was everything. Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes being a mother isn't about knowing all the answers. Sometimes it's just about standing tall when your child looks up, so they know what strength looks like. So to every woman out there who's been made to feel like she's too soft or too much or not enough, I see you. And if no one's ever told you this before, let me be the first. Your softness is not your weakness. It's your superpower. Lily didn't just find her voice that night on stage. She handed mine back to me. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or someone who stood up when it mattered most, I hope you'll take a second to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me, who's been your person? The one who saved you or the one you're saving? I'd love to read your stories. And if this kind of real, raw storytelling speaks to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another one. We're building a space here for honesty, healing, and the kind of strength that grows quietly. Until next time, stay soft, stay strong, and never, ever forget who you are.